So we are now moving in, just to stay on time, because we're doing so well, we're going to move into the questions from the community. It's important that we stay respectful. I am going to kind of come around and try to get everyone in. Everyone's question is important, okay? It's important that we hear each other. Again, this is an authentic engagement. We want answers to our questions. We want to be heard. We want to be listened to, and the only way we can do that is one at a time. All right? All right, so we're going to start over here. Kurt Hansen.
Hello, I'm Kurt Hansen. I've been in the area for 53 years, almost. The last time I spoke at a community meeting was also a few days before my birthday, and I got booed. So right before the saying happy birthday. But for those of you who don't know who I am, my father wrote the CRA. He's Harlan Hansen, and he had the interesting experience for a long time of having Dan Bellows as a client. Well, I'll leave that at that. But I met with my dad and with Bronson, I guess, who's works with the mayor, and discussed affordable housing and a model that was used by Aspen, Colorado, where my brother used to live. The affordable housing there is actually workforce housing, where the city owns most of the land by the PowerPoint property at Minnesota and Orange. There's a $5 million parcel there, and they own all of the land that the fire department practices on as you go back towards the Foxtail, towards Lombardi's in 1792. My suggestion is that the city donate that land and it be built for homes that could be purchased by the policemen, firemen, other stakeholders in the community so that they could live in the city that they serve. And haven't heard anything back from anybody on that. I'm not quite sure they understood it, but I did provide them with a copy of how Aspen does that. And basically, they have all of the privileges and rights of ownership, except the appreciation is limited to the consumer price index, and the city retains the right to first refusal to buy it back should the municipal worker wish to sell it. So they can have all the tax write-offs, all the other ownership benefits, except for the appreciation. Our estimates now, my dad's chairman of the Soto district at 83, that's his idea of retirement. But his estimate is that 300 people are moving to metropolitan Orlando area a day. So when you hear about traffic growth because of the development in Winter Park, that's going to happen with or without development. It's going to be people driving through here. The other thing, and I know I'm going to limit this because there's other people who want to talk, there's a lot of politicians who are very proud of the fact that we have a very low millage rate. The reality is algebra, A times B equals C. You can have a low rate when you have a very high value. I'd like to know if, in addition to the PowerPoint property, if the commission would perhaps have a income neutral lowering of the millage rate after reserves are met of some kind, rather than keeping the millage rate the same when we have these escalating values. I also served on the Affordable Housing Commission for Winter Park back in the 90s.
Okay.
So I'll leave it at that. So the question is, would you support the PowerPoint property that the city owns to be at least studied before it's sold off to a developer? And would you look at lowering the millage rate?
So you're going to have to share mine.
That's fine. You want me? You want to go first? I follow instructions.
I'm sure Kurt would like to hear from either of you, so.
Okay, I'll start.
Yes. Are you talking about the Progress Point property on Orange Avenue?
Correct. That's privately held, but the property as you go west is owned by the city.
Oh, no. Come talk to me after the thing. I'd like to know more about it. You mentioned Lombardi's. You mean the old Lombardi's, right?
Yeah, the old Lombardi's in that direction. Not all.
Yeah.
Basically, by the time you get to Foxtail,
Yeah.
that's private property.
Well, I'd be interested in speaking about that with you. If there are opportunities where we have land that is not,
The city owns it pretty clear.
yeah, okay. With regard to the millage rate, your math is correct, and for 3 years as a commissioner, I recommended that we lower the millage rate to recover $500,000 of the annual $1,500,000 increase in property taxes that were driven by valuation increases. I never got any support for that, and at the same time, we've been able to build our reserves generously. Thankfully, through some decisions that were made over the past several years, we now have increased our reserves the past 4 years from $8 million to $14 million, which approaches the point at which I think everyone can feel comfortable that we have enough buffer to handle hurricanes, et cetera, et cetera. And as the valuations continue to increase, I think we ought to be sharing some of the investment opportunity and the value opportunity back to the shareholders in a balanced way. That's my view.
I don't share Mr. Weldon's views on this. Right now, we're in a economic upturn, and what happens in an economic downturn is what we saw in 2008, and the city finances were in pretty bad shape at the time as a result of that. So I would not be a proponent of lowering the millage rate. And furthermore, I don't know if you saw on the news this morning, but Orlando had a sinkhole that was caused by a pipe rupture. That pipe was 132 years old. So right now in Winter Park, the average age of our potable water lines is 60 years old. Our sewers are older than that, and some of our stormwater systems are older than that. We're going to have a serious infrastructure problem if we keep ignoring these things, and lowering the millage rate is not going to solve that. So the most common cause of a sinkhole, believe it or not, is pipe ruptures. And I'm in the infrastructure business, and one time one of our salesmen at Q's was at the city of Chicago, and they refused to buy our camera inspection equipment for pipe. And the next day, the whole street collapsed, and the guy that turned him down, his car was in the bottom of the hole. So I've seen this. It happens all the time. And I think we really have to consider that before we just willy-nilly cut millage rates.
Thank you, Todd.
I need to regress to, I think it was the second question. I didn't really think that either of you answered it satisfactorily, not to me anyway. Why do you think it's important to see people like me in government? Anybody, to see people like me in government? I didn't think that, I thought that you didn't really address that, and I have a piggyback to it after you address it.
Well, you have to want the job too, and I can't.
Should we clarify the
That,
question?
yeah, why is it
please.
important that people see people like them in government?
People of color.
People of color, people, old people,
Okay.
young people,
Yeah.
people of color.
Yeah.
We're referencing people of color.
Yeah.
Why is it important that people of color see people of color in those decision-making positions? Why is it important to you? Why do you think it's important?
Well, I think more importantly is people of color, or anybody, should be able to approach their elected official regardless of the color. So if an official is not approachable, it doesn't really matter what color they are. But anyone that wants to run, I encourage it. It's a tough job. It can be very thankless sometimes, and Barbara stepped up, and I hope she does better the next time. I would love to see her on the dais.
I agree with Mr. Weaver again.
Okay, well, piggybacking on that, I heard you mention about the CRA funds, that you haven't seen very many people of color that they have access to funds to do things like paint their houses. I see a correlation there. When you don't see people in the position of making decisions, when you don't see people there like you are, like you're not really that interested, and you almost think like, well, they've got another agenda. I know you're looking puzzled, but that's part of the problem. I'm sorry, I'm a Southern white girl. I shouldn't be me, but I feel that. I see that. I've seen it all my life. I mean, I can't imagine when a mother of color with a son being fearful for his life every day. That's just something that wasn't in my reality that I really understood. And I think that's where we are. I'm sorry, I got way off, but I just don't think you really answered the question. People like me, seeing people like me in position of making decisions about my life. And that's important, really important. I'm sorry.
No need to be sorry. No need to be sorry. Thank you so much.
I live at the Plymouth, and Uber didn't work. They don't like to come to us. They don't like us because they have the carts and everything. So Uber isn't the last mile. Decision isn't the last mile there. Okay. I'm sorry.
Okay. All righty. So more questions. I'm coming.
Make sure I tell you about ITN. There is a private taxi service strictly for seniors, so make sure I tell you. Anyway, I have a question, but I want to make sure everybody knows that the library cannot give a community review of the design for the new library, but because I was an advocate for the library, I was given one a couple weeks ago. And so any individual that wants to check with the library, they will give you a review of the designs. They have about 20 big things with the design. You will be so impressed. The efficiency of the way they stack the books is different. I told my daughter-in-law, who has a 2 and 5-year-old, with my 50-year-old husband, has a 50-year-old son, and I said, you need to go over there. It is so fabulous. Anyway, my question is, please explain how the Sentinel and Orlando Business Journal could print a story about a fancy hotel at Lake Killarney that has not even applied any paperwork to city staff. Because I asked Jeff Briggs, and he said, no, they have not even applied for anything. But yet it sounded like it was a done deal.
Nancy, who would you like to go first?
You.
Okay. So, the attorney that represents that developer did come before the commission not long ago, talking about the site plan. They did not show the scale of the building, but they talked about closing down the streets and the location in which houses they were under contract for. So, and this has happened with the Orange Avenue development, where the developer disclosed such information to the Orlando Business Journal, and a few of us here in Winter Park saw it. That's just the way things are. I don't care for it very much, but I wanted to say about the library, I had a meeting with the interim library director, Cynthia Wood, and 2 of the board members the other day, and we talked about how much the library staff liked the new layout of the library. So if you look at the library building, it's a square or rectangular building, and I said, so it's on 2 floors, right? And they said, yeah. I said, so this is what the first floor looks like, right? And they love that. I love that too, because I voted for a new library. And I said, now the second floor is slightly bigger because the walls are canted. And they said, yeah. And I said, and they like that too, right? They like the layout of that. And I said, that's what I want too. If the library staff likes it, I'm gonna like it too. But the fact that the walls are canted like that and they're overpriced by $10 million, I have a problem with that. So, make no mistake, I am a proponent of a library. I am not a proponent of this design. We can't afford it. It's way over budget. And this is just another example of abuse. And we need to get our government back to being transparent. And having developers show outside parties what their development's going to look like before the commission even sees that, that's going to be a little bit of an issue for me as a commissioner. I don't think that's fair.
Thank you. So,
I get the answer. Do I get as much time?
You get the same time.
Thank you.
1.5, and it will go off when you go over.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. I don't know why the newspaper prints what they print, but I can tell you that when that developer came and asked for a special meeting of the city commission, no one on the commission endorsed any aspect of it, and I specifically noted, and it's in the recording, that it was entirely out of scale and would set a ridiculous precedent, so it's not going to happen. With regard to the library, I'm afraid Mr. Weaver has a very strong point of view that's founded in a large misunderstanding. This is going to be a contentious thing for the next 2 weeks. We have a design, we have a budget. The fundamental delivery of the library as designed and the civic center as designed is within budget. The extra $10 million is for $10 million of extra stuff. And if anybody read that, the TDT grant application, you'd understand that. It is not going to be financed with general tax funds. If the TDD does approve it, it will be a valuable asset for the residents of Winter Park that will enhance what we're paying for with our $30 million. I think it's absolutely abhorrent for a candidate to recommend that we kill a project and throw away millions and millions of your dollars. I think that's a travesty. And I'm going to fight for it for the next 2 weeks and for the next 3 years, and we're going to have a wonderful facility that's going to meet the needs of our children and future generations, and we're going to really be proud of it. Thank you.
Thank you. LaWanda?
Do you realize that the CRA document insults citizens by calling them apathetic? Would you agree that insulting taxpayer citizens while you spend their taxpayer money that's green and not black is not okay? Are you open to revising that document and submitting a public apology to West Winter Park residents as we move forward with the last 8 years of the CRA? Progressive language sets a tone for progressive thought.
Go ahead, Pete Roman.
I was not aware of that language. If that language is in there, it's obviously presumptuous at best, and I won't go into any further details. If you would like it changed, I'd be happy to consider changing it. I haven't seen it. If you'll make a copy of it and send it to me. Well, I haven't seen. I've read the CRA plan, both the original one and the second one, several years ago. I don't recall that phrase. It didn't stick out to me when I was reviewing the plan. I wasn't looking for things like that. If you could tell me the page number or whatever, it would make my life easier, and I'd be happy to try to amend that. The entire thing here is that there shouldn't be the sense of disrespect that you obviously feel. I don't have that disrespect. I didn't write that plan. That was 20-some years ago. I've been here for I've been here for 30 years, but I've been involved in local government for 12 years, and the last 3 as your commissioner. I have never tolerated or even seen anyone bring that kind of language to the city commission in my term. And I would not be supportive of it at any level in the future, certainly.
Well, I think it's very unfortunate that the word apathetic would appear in such a document, and I'd certainly apologize to West Winter Park if that word is in there. I'd like to see the context, but I think to not be apathetic is to show up at meetings like this, and I'm encouraged, and I thank Barbara and Farrellyn and the rest of the staff of the Heritage Center for putting this on. I hope we can have a lot more of these so no one can call us apathetic.
Alrighty.
Good evening. I'm Sheila Reed, and I have 2 questions for you, Mr. Weldon, and you can answer as well. Earlier, I heard you say that you believe in investing money wisely. So I'm asking, is that wisely invested money going to the community of Winter Park? for the people and not the businesses and not the hotels? Where's this wise money being spent?
Okay, we spent,
I'll send you the details of the CRA spending, and $9 million is for this building. The city took $1 million of CRA funds and established the land trust. The CRA, and I believe direct city funds, were used to purchase some of the lots. Joe would remember this better than I. Of the 40-plus lots that were given to Habitat, there's a small apartment at the end of Pennsylvania, I think it is, that was city-owned land that the city actually did a lot of the work to construct, I understand, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of effort. Oh, sorry, Joe. There's also numerous programs. Every year we spend thousands and thousands of dollars in the CRA for the small business program, for the facade improvements, and all you have to do is come forward and have a legitimate plan, and it's there for you. So I don't know what else we can do. If you have other specific allocations of the CRA money you're interested in, bring them forward.
Well, I was just making a remark to your remark. You said wisely invest.
Well, I think it's a wise investment.
Okay, but
For everyone to support it.
I don't see them as a community person in the community, and I know others as well. I don't see anything but businesses being built in residential areas. I see businesses. I don't see anything to help the community. I don't see any more apartments, for senior citizens. I see one, but there's a lot more senior citizens in the city of Winter Park. Okay, I just don't see it.
I'm sorry about that.
Not
You're
in a way
standing in
that
it to a large extent.
it's not residential. I don't see anything that's being done for the residents.
Okay.
That's it. That's my opinion.
Were you specifically talking about the Canopy project or the CRA
I'm
funding
speaking
in
about
general?
the Canopy project. I'm just totally confused on that. There's a lot of why this and why that. I just don't agree with that at all, but I'm only one person.
Well, I agree with you. I wanted a library and a parking structure.
Right.
And now we're, the proposal to make up part of the shortfall for this Canopy project are the parking lots. And they're going to use CRA money for parking lots to plow down a bunch of trees, knock down another building to put in enough parking for this convention center that we didn't vote for and the voters didn't approve.
Right. Okay.
So, let me say one more thing. So when the city took by eminent domain some homes where the water treatment plant is, behind the public safety building, they built that apartment complex at Railroad in Pennsylvania. And I think that was a very good use of CRA funds. And I think we can do that again and again with a little willpower and a little political will instead of a lot of developer money.
Yes, I agree. Okay. Maria?
Good evening, and thank you all very much, Pete, for coming out, and Todd. I keep hearing that word CRA, and you asked me questions, so now this is my question to you all. I'm very factual about this. That word empathetic or apathetic, this has been used with the leadership in the city of Winter Park. How do I know? There's panels that we have set on with the mayor, certain commissioners, and certain things. There has been a very tainted view of the West Side residents. And the tainted view is, you don't know, so I'm going to help you out, is we're not educated. You send your young off. If you want to empower your community or the West Side, why don't you make sure you educate your young and make sure they come back to the community and help aid the community to build it up, to strengthen the community. Now, I'm one that's a huge advocate for my community. I sit on Hannibal Square Community Land Trust Board, used to sit on Casa Feliz because it was about the preservation of historic homes. We know that whole ordeal that we had to go through, a long ordeal. Now, the CRA, I was so glad that the gentleman spoke up and said his father originally wrote that, because now I understand how Dan Bell's name has been written in there. I am an applicant of the CRA and have been denied. I have sent emails to the mayor, the city of commissioners. I have not gotten a response from you guys. In May, it will be a year. It will be a year. Driveway, painting, certain things I applied for with the exterior of my home. And I did get response from one young lady, even the underground wiring and the light, to tell me that the light should not go on my side of the street because the city thought it was better to upgrade the opposite side of the street, which Dan Bellows, that I understand your dad, helped with that CRA plan. So it is not happenstance that all of this is happening, and that there's not a leadership that represents myself. I'm young, and I'm an entrepreneur that have tried to come and establish youth programming with the CRA, with your employer, Laura. Where are these kids? You don't know who she is? She's a CRA coordinator. Laura, I don't know her last name. But where are these young people able to get jobs? How is it that we had a Valencia College that had a scholarship program for any kid in the West Side to make sure they go and get 2 years, but not one person, Laura, but she's been there for quite some time, has not advocated for these kids. They don't know. So a lot of what you're saying, my question, when do we respect the voice of even one citizen? It doesn't have to be 90%, 85%. When we have senior citizens that you are building garages in their backyard, you would not do that on Palmer. When do we respect as a leader? And I understand leadership very well. When do we respect the one voice of 2, 3, 4, 5 people to say, no, this is not okay? And you continuously upzone and upzone. And it's continuously done. It is not done everywhere. And we have written, we have had a lot of people come, but we have not been heard. Thank you.
All right. So we have about 5 minutes left. There was a question in there, and there are more questions.
I have a question.
Okay, all right.
My question is for both of you. The Winterpark Housing Authority, the Meadows. I hadn't been down that road in a long, long time. See, I was born about a block away from here, but I can't afford to come back here. I live in Mount Dora. But I love this city, so I come in, trying to preserve the history of this community. But I rode down one road and went by the Housing Authority, and it was like a third world country. There's no flowers, no nothing, you know, just, I mean, how can we, you got America Bloom coming later this year. You know, all of the streets got beautiful flowers and flower pots everywhere. You know, so what can be done about that? Is that in the budget for the Housing Authority? Is something the city can do? I know they're not in the CRA. Are they in the CRA? So why can't we make, you know, just because you're low income and poor, it doesn't mean you have to live in places that look so deserted. You know, when people come home after working 2 or 3 jobs, and they come in, and they don't see anything that's pretty. Some aesthetics that make, you know, I grew up, I was born at 800 West New England Avenue, and I lived on Simons Avenue. We were dirt poor. We never had a phone, we never had a car. But I found my way out. But I'm not gonna say I found my way out because I worked so hard. People helped me. People helped me to find my way out. And that's what I expect the city to do, to help people to find their way out of here. So tell me, what are you gonna do about the Winterpark Housing Authority and that neighborhood next door, the Oaks, that looks like, I don't know what. It's a shame before Winterpark. In fact, I'm getting ready to send an email to America Bloom to say, make sure you go on Monroe Avenue before you start awarding something to Winterpark.
Okay, we gotta give our panelists time to answer the questions. So we're gonna go ahead and start with Todd. We're gonna pick up here with Fairland. I want to stay within the time. We're gonna go slightly over. We're gonna hope the community center does not boot us out. I think you guys may be able to help with that. And then we'll pick up just maybe 1 or 2 more questions, okay? All right, so Todd, we're gonna pick up here with Fairland's question. I think that's the most recent. There's a lot in there, so.
I think Farrell's question is a fair one, and, I drive by the Plymouth, which is also Winter Park Public Housing, and that place looks pretty nice out front, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, there's a lot there.
So-
We're struggling trying to create a garden.
So who maintains it? No, not the garden, I mean the general grounds. The garden's lovely, by the way, I've seen
I don't
it.
know if that there's a lot of desires there. But no, it does, it does look pretty good. Much better than the meadows, yes,
Yeah.
indeed. Yes,
So,
I agree.
you're right, Carolyn, there is a difference of equality there, and if the Plymouth can be kept up like that, yeah, it is wrong for not having the same standards at the Oaks. I agree. Come talk to me.
The city does not spend taxpayers' dollars on landscaping of private property, and that's private property owned by the Winter Park Housing Authority, actually owned by the Orange County.
So you don't get
How's
any,
that
you
vote?
don't get any finance, any money or anything?
We get absolutely nothing from the city of Winter Park because it's run under the National HUD program that sends money to the state and then to the county, and they're financed entirely by the county's, by the county's housing authority.
So is it in the city's, the Winter Park limits?
Yes, it's in the city of Winter Park limits, but it's private property. It's in the CRA, but it's private property. The CRA spends money on flowers within the right-of-ways,
Not somebody.
not on private property. No, ma'am.
Okay. Forrest had a question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Forrest.
Barbara, I'm so happy you're putting this on.
Thank you,
You and your
Forrest.
friends. This is a question regarding the charter review process. I'm going to take you just a little bit back in history. So in 1881, Loring Chase, the founder of Winter Park, met with some African-American residents who lived here according to the newspaper of the day, of this day. And they agreed to a plat plan, 1882 Winter Park plat plan, which included Hannibal Square as a viable community. Distinctly different sized lots, smaller lots, but a viable community. And those residents, those African-American residents were here before Loring Chase was. Okay, so he included them in the plan. The question I have regarding the charter review process is, would you please consider having it within the Hannibal historic community that predated Winter Park, would you consider having a Hannibal commissioner elected from within the Hannibal community as it's currently platted to go into the charter review process as a discussion item and include Barbara Chandler as the appointee?
Let's just stay focused. On the question. Let's just stay focused. Let me get support. So I guess the question is for you guys.
Does that sounds like single-member district for us?
No, it's not.
It's not? Okay.
It's a
Okay.
historic Hannibal community that was established in 1881.
Okay.
So are you suggesting or requesting that the committee be enlarged to include such a person?
That the commission be enlarged to include a Hannibal Square community resident elected to that position.
Elected to that position?
Elected.
Who's going to elect them?
Elected within the Hannibal Square community.
I don't
And if you don't know what that is, I do.
Well, the current no, but it's not that I don't know the boundary of the community. It's that it would be rather procedurally difficult to elect them. I would have no objection to recommending to the mayor that he take one of his appointments and make that happen. And I'll make that suggestion at the next meeting for you.
Thank you.
And the charter review process should be broad and wide open. And all of you people who take the time to come to these meetings, I encourage you to get your friends involved and make some recommendations about the charter.
I agree that it would be procedurally difficult, but I think it's fair too. And, the example I had earlier where we had a couple of extra members of our Lakes Board from Lake Killarney, even though they weren't in the city limits. What we did affected them, and obviously what the commission does affects the Hannibal area. So, you know, maybe pushing Kurt Ardeman over a couple of feet, the city attorney, and putting somebody from the Hannibal neighborhood in there might be appropriate, maybe not as a voting commissioner, but certainly as an advisor. I think that input is valuable and it's lacking right now.
Okay, next question.
My question is, are you willing to create a minority business program that ensures that 25% more business located in the CRA are minority owned, more specifically Black owned, to coincide with the historic demographics of the area, also providing affordable business space? Because I am a business owner and I do work hard, so I guess trying to figure out where we can get a foot in.
You're not apathetic.
Okay, so, Todd, Todd, let's listen. This is an important one. Todd, go ahead.
Well, I wouldn't support 25%. I'd support maybe 40% because that's a better ratio considering the amount of African American population we have on the west side, and I think that would be fair. I think I'm not always for preferential treatment, but in this case, I think the Hannibal community has had just the opposite of preferential treatment. So I'd like to advocate that for a few years and see some minority-owned businesses here. I know.
My answer is the same as before, but I can embellish on it a little bit. I do not consider that it would be acceptable to the larger tax-paying base of the city to invest risk dollars in businesses. I have, however, support all of the CRA's programs with regard to helping businesses with facades, with I forget the scope of the CRA business help services, but they are not insubstantial. And you know, perhaps we can look at expanding those that are not direct subsidies to investment, but that would also help you improve the attractiveness and the suitability of your property for the business that you're running.
She can't run a business.
Wait, yes, that's an attachment. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so were you done? I'm sorry. Were you done or you finished? Okay, go ahead.
Yes, Martha Bryan Hall. Thank you all for coming this afternoon. I have two questions and I have an answer, I do believe, for Farrelly. I would like to know, when would the Hannibal Square be designated as a historical district?
Yes.
It was on the agenda some time ago, but for some reason it was never implemented. The second question with Margaret Square and the Tranquil Terrace. I worked at Seminole Community College. I had the names of Tranquil Terrace and also the Meadows signs put up there through the city of Winter Park. It wasn't ever acknowledged that I had that done, but by working at the college, I had that done. Also, I had my students to come out and we beautified Margaret Square by setting plants out from around the office, all around. The reason I did that is because I lived there while I built my home in Maitland. And I do believe that administration has a lot to do with getting that area improved. Was that for me?
That was an error, I never turned it on.
Okay. All right, so I think that once the city and Tranquil Terrace and also the Meadows, which is called Margaret Square, if the administration will be concerned, because when I lived there, Ann Todd was the director, and she made sure that everything was taken care of, because I was the president of the beautification committee to make sure that everything was taken care of. I believe in keeping where I live looking nice.
Thank you. So I guess the question that we can lead up with, Pete, is about designating Hannibal Square a historic district. When will that happen?
We have a policy in place, and when the appropriate number of, and you can do this on a small section too, I think it's 12 homes. If you get 12 homes or more, and you get 8 of them to agree to it, and the Historic Preservation Board recommends it to the City Commission, then the City Commission will hear it. And that's the process we have, and it's available for small areas within the West Side for those residents who are serious enough about it to actually do it. So it's available to you.
But how, at Danville's, the chapel there, the sign says Hannibal Square Historical District.
Is that a question?
Plus it's an answer, because if it's designated, if he can have that sign at the chapel saying that Hannibal Square is a historical district, and then the city is not acknowledging that, something is wrong.
Well, I think you probably understand the difference between a real historic district and real estate marketing. What I mean is that what Dan Bellows is doing is naming something for his own purposes, as opposed to a real historic district that you want to create.
Right, but to generate CRA money for this project.
That doesn't happen that way.
Is John Schofield on the historical board?
I don't know.
He was, I don't believe he is now, I don't know.
It's been a while since I visited.
We're going to take 2 more questions, and then 3 more. 3 more, Linda will be the last. So the question Todd is referring to is Hannibal Square being designated a historic district.
I think it deserves historic designation, but unfortunately, the numbers that we just heard, 12 houses, you need 8 of them to declare a historic district. And unfortunately, Mr. Weldon had changed that. It used to be 50% plus 1, and now it's much more difficult, but I think if you can talk to your neighbors, it's still achievable. Another thing that bothers me about the current historic preservation ordinance is that there's an opt-out clause, which means that anybody within that district can, sell the building, and Joe Blow developer puts up a townhome. So I would like to eliminate that clause from the historic preservation ordinance and get the agreement number from 2/3 down to, say, 58%, which I think is a substantial majority and fair as well.